Well, very good evening to everybody, and welcome to a little stream, not too long. Just doing some work on Sigma 7 tonight. You can probably see the screen, but that's not quite right. I'm going to move this piece of video and need to find a space for this moment, so I'm just going to move that out of the way for the moment. So part of the stream is about what's happened this week. An extra film that's coming. You can see the film on the screen at the moment is the launch of Sigma 7 coming from NARA, and these are launch shots which I'm going to use. I'll show you what I've done so far, and then there's a new launch shot right there. I can use some of these launch shots later. To start that there. I'm going to switch screens, show you the other one. You'll eventually get to the screen, which I can see. Just my edit screen, and I'll show you the work that's been done on Sigma 7 so far. It's taken quite a few months to get to this stage. Let's see the entire flight in front of your eyes. There it is. These bits at the 13-hour mark are not part of the video. From here, on the 0 mark, I had to wait to about 9 hours 36. As you can see, the work that's been put into it. You can't see all the streams of film and audio here, but I'll run through them very quickly. As you get closer in, you'll see the amount of detail that's done. Right from the beginning here, where we're going through suit up, and I'll show you some of those later, and then into the spacecraft itself, the walkout, and then rolling all the way across. I'll just scroll across so you can see it. You have film in the middle. There's some NBC Sigma 7 shots. There's pictures, schematic of the spacecraft. Down here is all the audio for the film that is also included. Included some film which leads up to Sigma 7, training film with Wally as well. And you'll see on the top row here on row 2, there is tiny bits of audio. Play a bit for that now, which sounds like this.
Test 66, T-minus 30 minutes and counting.
So those are the, that's the mission control audio. There isn't much of it, of course, from Mercury control. They didn't do the countdowns like in Apollo. But this is probably the big bit here.
Your attention, please. Test 66. We're at T-minus 45 minutes and holding. Minus 45 minutes and holding. Test 66.
So the audio had to be cut up. There's a little bit of doubt in my mind that I've got the audio completely right on the countdown just yet, but it's getting there. You'll see that we start at about 1 hour, 2 minutes in, and we get to 57 minutes down until the first audio comes in, which is Colonel Powers.
This is Mercury Control. The time here at Cape Canaveral is 6:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, and the audio isn't the greatest in the world. I'm going to try and clean that up a little bit before we finish. And then working all the way through the countdown. So for the first hour, it's just the countdown. There's a lot of video that's coming from NARA, including this week. So this is looking at the launch site. So there's some launch site video. And I'll show you these shots in a second or so. Coupled with the top here, you can see the NBC News coverage, which is really important to this video. Without it, it's a little bit difficult to put together because the NARA shots don't cover a huge amount. There are 3 or 4 films that I've managed to get from NARA, and then moving into the launch sequences, and the launch sequences include the majority of the time a front view of the pilot cam, which is down here on row 6, and you can probably see it's in bits, and that's because the speed has to be adjusted all the way through to sync with the words that Wally is speaking and hearing. And that took me quite a while to do. So I hope that doesn't get out of sync, because I don't want to try and do that again. And then you'll also see that there are launch shots, which I'm going to change. I'll bring this one under here. You can see down here on row 9 that there are more launch shots which are coming from NARA. They're much clearer than the ones I did have, which were here. So I'm going to change these out. So you'll have a shot of Wally in the cabin. That's the main shot, and then the launch shots will be around him. And then as the cameras stop playing, Orbiter will come in with, it's got a fantastic Mercury simulation on Orbiter. Detail isn't as much as KSP, but it's easier to manipulate to do what I need to do. And then moving across and in. So there's 2 parts to this, really. You can see the gaps that are in here. These gaps between the simulator shots, I want to fill with more simulator shots, but I just haven't got around to it yet. And then you see the number of simulator shots that have to be made. These are all on the first orbit. And then we lead into sunset on the first orbit, and then you'll see, you may remember Paolo has developed a graphic with the old Mercury control front on it, and the icon, which is here on row 3. So there's the control panel on row 2, and there's the Mercury map indicator. I'll show some of that in a minute. And then as we go through the nighttime side, the whole of the nighttime side is covered off in Australia through to Canton, and then as we come into the light again, start the whole process again. Here you can see some particle chroma key, so I put some particles in because you keep seeing the fireflies that John and Scott had seen, which is pretty good to see. Just zoom out a little bit, and so this is orbit 2. You can see all at the top here, all the orbiter sequences for orbit 2 are in. It wasn't a case of just let it run, because there are drifting flight sequences and there are controlled flight sequences, and then into end of orbit 2, there it is. Orbit 3, I put in a tiny bit of orbiter so far, and the end bit of orbit 3, because there's a lot of maneuvers over the states that he does in control mode and drifting. And then you'll go in, there's the end of orbit, beginning of orbit 3, and then again, quite a few shots already done on that pass, and then into orbit 4 and end of, out of the darkness again. Every time putting the particles in. You see here there are pictures, so beginning to put the pictures in that he took. They're not in sequence yet, but they're going to be. You'll see there's quite a lot here of Orbiter. It's quite an easy thing to do, just run the simulator and let him drift. Shorter nighttime pass, and then coming into the last orbit on orbit 6. Here's the orbit 6 orbiter stuff coming in, and you'll see here's the onboard cam again. I've got to sequence some of the other parts of the onboard cam because there are some not much. And then this leads into retrofire re-entry, which I haven't done yet. I haven't sequenced that yet, but I have done. You'll see here, I'll zoom down. This is the pilot cam, so this took me a long time to do. Every single one of these is an edit to get the pilot cam to sync with the audio. And the way I had to do it in the end was I tried to sync the film to the audio at the right time, but it was just impossible to do. But it is now completely synced. I'll give you a burst of that in a little while when you see the main screen. So that's completely synced, so very pleased with that. The audio, you can see this point at 9:08:21, or wherever it is in the audio throughout the whole flight. This is the onboard audio. The audio was slow and missing gaps. It had been edited, so I put all those back in again. That took a few weeks to do, constant listening and making sure that when he said something on the transcript, it corresponded to the time. And that then leads us through re-entry into this part, which is footage of the re-entry, which we've got from the carrier, which is right there. I'll show you that again in a minute. And there's some limited stuff which I've got to fill to, and then you can see here the end bit here is latest narrow footage, which is covering the recovery. Again, I'll show you in a sec. And then this bit here is the debrief. So I managed to get the debrief tape that he made on board the carrier just after the flight. That's part of it, so I put it in to begin with. But you'll see that, as always, another bit of film came in, and I need to just edit that into a bit more so that he's still talking during that footage, which is footage of the recovery of his spacecraft and eventually himself. So that's the work that's gone into MA7. It's been probably as big as Apollo 11, I've got to say. Earth orbital flights are different because they are you have to, when you're doing them in real time, you have to show where you're at. So even finding out where the orbits ended and started again was quite a difficult task because there was no documentation on when that happened. You had to go by what the simulator kind of simulates and guessing from the words that he's saying at the end of each orbit. And sometimes he doesn't say anything about sunrise or sunset, so you're kind of guessing a little bit on when it comes in. But doing some research on it, I think I've got it right now. So we've got the exact timings pretty much perfect. The audio is synced to the exact timings, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the results so far. You can see it's probably 70% completed. There's a little bit more to do, so tonight sometime I will sync this video that you can see on the screen now, which has got the four, I think it's got 4 launch shots. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and 4. It looks similar, but they're from different cameras. Take that away a second, come over here. This is the start of the mission here. You can see the graininess of these 2 shots on the top right, so I'm going to replace those. They're not so good, but I've used them up till now because that's all I had for reference. And you'll see the pilot cam here, much brighter at the beginning when the capsule starts to turn a bit. The bits I like about this is syncing it to the actual mission and trying to get this audio right exactly. So we'll see a flash in a second over here somewhere.
Cape Capcom, Sigma 7. I systems are go here.
How do you read now?
Oh, I can see the flash.
There you go. So those things are really important to try and get dead on. They take quite a while. They take quite a while to do. And this cam, again, the speed of it isn't the same speed as the audio. So I've had to adjust the camera speed again on the film to make sure that it fits with what goes on, including when it gets to orbit, which is right about here. So here we go. This is 0G.
Chico.
I have Chico, cap set, and interlock stamped, and it's very pleasant.
You can see that the audio is just about right on what he's saying. I'll zip it over to the one on re-entry. The re-entry one was an eyesore. Give you a bit of a... Here he comes. You ready? I'll just play this for a minute or so.
There we go into 0.05G green. I am hands off at this point. In rate command, in aux down. And I have a roll rate started. A slight pitch rate, not bad at all. I can see out the window for some strange reason at last.
So you can see it's just about right on. It's as good as I'm going to get it. I messed around with it so much. I didn't know whether I was ever going to be able to do it properly. I've left it as it is now. I'm not going to change it. I'm not adding anything else in. You can see, or you saw the amount of edit that went into that. It just took so long to do. So to get it right, you've got to labor at it, but there's a point where you say, okay, well, that's as good as I'm going to get it. The orbiter shots then, very nice, I've got to say. And then the great thing is that the flight plan also comes into this. So here's a shot of 13 minutes in, and you can see that on the right-hand side, the timings for what he's supposed to do when. That's off the checklist, the original flight plan. Now we had a flight plan which was pre-flight, documented by NASA. That's the one I've used mainly. I've taken some bits out which were I haven't put in the mission control stuff which is in that flight plan. I've taken it out because Wally had his own card which said what to do at certain times, and it kind of looked like this. So I've left it like this, so every time it changes, here's a change. Right there. So there's a change, this is at 25 minutes. So these are all the same, the cards are all the same, and this is easy to read. And you hear him do these things, report aux stamp OK, so he does. Go to fly-by-wire low, report turning around and complete, and check orbit attitude. You hear him do these things, and it's quite satisfying to have written out the cards, because I wrote the cards out first, then put them into the timeline, and then suddenly it comes alive because he's talking about things which are on that checklist, and you can follow it quite easily all the way through. And those checklists last for 8 hours, so the 8 hours of the flight. I've come to chat. Sorry, guys, I haven't really been looking at chat. I've been trying to do a bit of a narrative for you to show you where we're at with MA8. Golden, welcome along. Sloshu, hello. Matt, yes, he had. Golden, I don't know how my brain doesn't explode either. It does take, people do sort of get on my back a little bit sometimes and say, when's the next one coming out? And I often sit there and chuckle and think, well, when it's ready, because this takes quite a long time to do. There's a lot of work and a lot of research that goes into these things. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were putting together I was putting together Apollo 13, and I've said it before, I basically just recorded Orbiter in a very haphazard way. If you go back and have a look at that series now, not much of what you're seeing on screen relates to what actually happened in real life. It was a haphazard thing, and it's grown into what it's grown into. So it is what it is. John, hi again. Hi, John. You're very welcome. Of course, this isn't Apollo, John, so this is Mercury, but I know what you mean. Thank you. Homemade. JT, that's super kind of you. Thank you. I really appreciate what you've just put in the chat there for donation. That's really kind. And JT is, I'm sure he doesn't mind me telling, is a member of the Patreon as well, which is just mind-boggling to me. JT makes the best homemade documentaries. You must know him. He makes the best documentaries about space that the world has ever seen. Honestly, truly believe we're watching a master at work there. So he says a master at work here, but honestly, some of the stuff he pulls out, and he's currently working on Mariner, And I haven't seen any much of it yet, but I know that it's going to be an amazing piece of work. So, Bryce, welcome along. 70-year-old who remembers all these. I'm always grateful. Yeah, you're very welcome, Bryce. I'm only too pleased to work on them. It's a passion, as you know. It's a love of space flight and wanting to get it as close as we can to what it was to be there with Wally and the spacecraft, which I think is going to become apparent from this one. I think when I did MA7 with Scott, it got me going into I'm really trying to tell a story here of this flight, and I think I did, and I think that talk about Scott somewhat subsided from the beginning around what people were saying about him, because if you watch that mission, you'll find that not many of the problems were actually his. They were pre-programmed, they were pre-planned. The things that he found, the triple and double firing of those thrusters, Wally finds in this flight, they still hadn't fixed it, and of course Scott didn't even know it was going on. So so lots of things came from doing that one, but mostly the detail that comes from a Mercury flight. When you imagine this thing is 1962, the early 60s, it's amazing to think that they're doing what they're doing at that time with the technology they had, and then putting it back together again 60 years later is difficult, because although the archive is easier to find now, the stuff you have to really look for. There's a lot of interesting bits and pieces around which you can pick up and think, oh, I've got to add that in now. I must add that in. There's another bit I've got to add in. There's several bits to add in here. When we get into the flight, I want to start putting in the instructions that Wally had for each of the experiments. I think it's really important to tell it. And see what those were, because although they seem very simplistic compared to Apollo, at the time they were cutting edge. They were state of the art experiments going on. And also, we always think of MA8 as a space flight that did not have any experiments on board, and that's just not true. He did have some. He didn't want to do too much about them, but he did have some. And Wally was Wally, a little bit short sometimes. There's several occasions during the audio that he comments about things being asked of him, and they're slightly Wally. You get used to it. But it's an amazing flight to listen to. You can tell that he is just concentrating on stuff. For the first two orbits, he's trying to concentrate on his suit temperature, which isn't going right. And they're thinking about bringing the flight down early, but luckily they don't. And these shots I got with Orbital are really nice, really come together well. I don't particularly want to on this video show all the bits and pieces, because I think that's nice to find out when I release it. It gives you a flavor. I will though show you this screen. So this is not completed yet. I'm not happy about the circles here. I've changed some of them. I'm going to try and remove some of this. It's a bit cluttered at the moment, but you'll see as we go through this orbit, you'll see the Mercury spacecraft moving through the stations. This is Mouchet and Woomer, and the nice thing is, sorry, it's a bit juddery. The nice thing is that the orbits all line up, and it makes sense what's going on. If you haven't seen before what wasn't on MA7, because there was no need for it. But you see at the top right here, there's coastal command ships. There's the Huntsville, there's the Watertown, and there's the Mariner. And these were extra ships with communication systems to help him communicate through orbits 4, 5, and 6, which are these orbits here, the top ones. As he comes out, you'll see that he misses Orbit 4, he hits Mouchet and a little bit of Woomera, and then there's no communication into Canton, which is over here by 0 on the degrees, and he goes through the command ships. There's a lot of problems with those communications at the time, but I think it's nice. And then when we come over to the other side here, we switch over to the next view. I can't show the whole view at once, and I didn't want to because it wasn't big enough. But you'll see, he goes into the States for the first orbit, and there we are at sunrise in the first orbit, in orbit attitude, which is where he was most of the time until he did this stuff where he was in free drift. So yeah, you see this stuff here on the right. This checklist tells you that he was doing day terrestrial maneuvers, gave his standard report, then he did his maneuvers, and I've simulated the maneuvers. There you go, that's what he did. He basically stood on his feet, as it were, and changed the attitude. And then what he would do is he'd go back, here we go, he goes back into orbit attitude. There you go. Goes back into orbit attitude a lot of the time. And it's been a bit of a headache trying to get it right by listening and doing on the simulator, trying to simulate it. I've got more stuff in my cutting floor than I've ever had before, because he'll end up drifting upside down, and he'll say he's the other way around. I have to get rid of that. So anyway, back to you guys. Wasn't just the cold on Apollo 7 that made Wally grab me about experiments. That was just Wally. Do you know what I think so, Bryce? I think it was just Wally. I think he, I don't think he wanted anything to interfere with the mission. And the mission to him, it was a test flight. Yeah, I think it was a test flight to him, and especially here when he was trying to prove a point. The famous bit is in this audio where he speaks to Kraft, and they say they think they've proved their point, and they're talking about, proving their point to, I think, Carpenter. That is what it is. 60 years, I'll move on. JT, it's funny with our two channels how long these videos take to produce, don't they, Jez? Whenever we seem to release them into the wild, enough time has passed that a large chunk of the reaction is welcome back. Yes, yeah, isn't it? As if we had been on vacation the whole time. I know you and I have talked a lot about how much time these things take. If I was doing this full time as a job, I would rattle this off in 2 weeks. I just work at it, and it would be gone, and it would be done. I work full time, and I'm as tired as the rest of us after a week's work. And I literally steal 4 or 5 hours every night, probably Tuesday and Thursdays, just to try and get some stuff done here. And then I'm working. Sometimes I don't notice the clock, and it's up past 11, 12 o'clock at night when I'm getting out of here, and I've been sat on my computer all day because of work as well. And there's a lot. You don't realize also how long it takes to do a sequence. I would not believe it would take me this long to do these, but that's the way it is. If we want these things, people just have to be patient with me and with you, and we will eventually get them out. I did Apollo 15 the other day. I got the audio together. It takes probably about 3 or 4 hours to put the audio together and then make sure that it's edited properly so that we've got rid of all the gaps, but I've left the right spaces in for the TV broadcast, which was on that video. Once you got the audio, then it looks like it should be pretty much ready, but then you have to put the orbiter sequences in, you have to put the animations in, then you have to do all the flight plans on top of those, then get all the pictures, and they're not always easily available sometimes, and make sure you're putting them in the right timeline and that it corresponds to the Apollo 15 journal in this case. And that takes a lot of time and effort to try and get that right and sync it up properly. So I think those are the easier ones, because when you're in translunar coast, They're just in PTC or they're not. And you don't have to, like with Mercury, show the ground track properly. I'll show you what I mean. Here's Mercury on the screen. This is over the States. Here we come into the States, and this is exactly when 152.02, you have a look. Sorry, not the States, what am I talking about? This is coming over across the coast at Canary Islands. So this is the African coast. So you've got to sync it exactly right. The state stuff is back. Here we go. Here's the state stuff. Because of the dark, he came through the States at morning time in Los Angeles. So, but here's coming across Baja. And to do that, you've got to get the right sequence going and listen to what's going on and know when that is. There's Baja California at 127. See 127 Guam. That's when he's kind of coming into contact with them a little bit before, and then into the next bit will be that he'll be in contact with California and John Glenn. So these things take time to do. On the Apollo 15 one, you don't have that. Just got to make sure that you've kind of got all the bits and pieces together, but it still takes days and days to do. So the point of the conversation there was, we are definitely working really hard at it. It's just that we don't seem to be producing much at the time. Page, thank you. I really appreciate that, and thanks for joining us. Really do. Well, it was definitely not my Pete Conrad. No, he wasn't, was he? He was awesome, and so was Pete. Your videos are greatly appreciated. Thank you, Bud Martin. By US Spaceflight History Buffs, I've been running with you, Gemini, 10 videos in the background while I've been working for this last week. Waiting for more. There's more to come. Been listening to each mission's audio on its anniversary, and these videos are so awesome because there's almost everything in one place. Yeah, thank you, Jim. That's precisely what I was trying to do. Now, I will admit that I've been extremely bad. I've broken a cardinal rule, which I'm going to admit while I'm here. I don't care. I've used some AI. The reason I'm going to show you the start sequence for this video, and I hope you get a little bit of a kick out of it. But here you go. This is the start. I'm going to play the whole thing to you, just the start sequence, just because you can see this bit. It's just the last bit you want to have a look at. I hope you like it. AI is awesome sometimes, and came up with this.
I have liftoff. Clock has started, and she feels real nice.
You pull your gear pins for this flight?
Yeah, I got the pins on my office wall. Altimeter's off the peg.
All right, have a go from here.
Roger, looks real good.
Are you a turtle today?
Going to Vox record only. You bet your sweet ass I am.
Good time to catch you on that one.
Hope you enjoyed that. Wanted to go tongue-in-cheek this time, and yeah. That's my favorite patch that I've ever asked AI to produce. I might even produce that and put it on a jacket somewhere. Anyway, I'm going to leave that on the screen. There you go. Made my day. I was talking to AI for a long time. Make me a patch that's kind of NASA derived with a turtle. And this is what it comes up with. So, well, it took a few times. Trying to get it to write the writing around the outside on the patch was quite unbelievable. And putting the Sigma 7 thing on there just took a while, but we got there. I'm thinking about selling those. I think they're really good. Anyway, I'm going to finish off now because I've got 2 hours until bedtime, and I need to get these launch sequences done. And then I need to move on. As you can see, there's a bit of work to do. Last two things I'll show you. These, quite like these. TV coverage is great of Wally, and we'll move through. We'll just see some of that if you want to. This stuff here is nice because I put together the Mercury spacesuit, showing exactly where things are. If you've ever not understood what these things are that you're seeing on the spacesuit, so where the microphones are, where the neck ring is, and then where the communication cable is, the visor valve, stuff like that they always talk about. Neck zippers, the entrance zipper, stuff like that. So I've started to put together all that stuff, and you see down the bottom here, I still come up against, that's got to be moved. I'll move that now, will I remember? I've just got to move that picture up a bit. That's okay, I'll do that later. Yeah, so stuff like that is really good. And then the last thing has been last thing I'll show you just very quickly is the ingress. So Wally coming out. So this is new footage which came in in the middle here, on the left. Put the graphics in on the right-hand side of the Atlas, and then you see Wally coming out, and then syncing it here with these. With the TV as well was really difficult, and then again with the film that came out was really difficult, but I think I got it pretty good. Slowed one up.
This is Mercury Control.
Sped one up and stuff like that, and I don't know if it I'll just mute Shorty and there you go. This is the inside view and then I'll change it to the color version because it's a better quality. There you go. Same sync. And then trying to get that. The TV was kind of at the right speed. The film wasn't so much all the time. Back to the TV because the camera stops recording. They only do certain bits, and then back to the color, and there's the same view backwards and forwards. Again, JT will tell you this just takes hours and hours of backwards and forwards with the film, and you do this first. I did this one of the first sequences I did because you want them in sync. So now they're in sync, and yeah, things are looking good for MA8. How long have I been on? A while now. Yeah, I will stop there unless anybody's got any questions. Welcome, Going Craven. You're welcome aboard. I'm going to stop the stream there in a second or so. Enjoyed just having a quick chat with everybody. Just to tell you, other stuff coming up at the moment. I've got Apollo 14 day 2 and 3 on the go at the same time. The Apollo 11 debrief series, I've got 3 tapes coming for that. So that'll be tapes, I think, 6, 7, and 8, which will take us back into lunar orbit, I do believe. Maybe even headed towards home again. I've got some tapes on Apollo 10, which I'm a bit unsure what they are at the moment from the National Archives, but I think I've managed to secure the second Apollo 13 debrief. Those have been a bit more difficult because they were pre-digitized, and when you ask for them, you've got to go back and ask for access to them. So I've done that this week because I was waiting to see if I could get a copy of it. So hopefully soon I'll have that as well. So yeah, there's some interesting thing. And the last thing I've tried to get, which has been not seen for quite a while, is the Apollo 10 launch from the gantry, from the top of the gantry. And I'm 65% sure that's what I've asked for. It's difficult to know with NARA, you can't always tell. But I've tried to find out if I can get that. And if that is the one, I might try and get more Apollo 10 and maybe redo Apollo 10 launch if I can get some of the footage which I want. So, hiya Rogero, love your work, all the best from the UK, mate. Hope everything's okay over there. So there's plenty of stuff coming up. Apollo 15 are going to continue. I talked about Apollo 16 last time. I will continue to do Apollo 16. I just want to get MA8 out of the way and done because it's become my life's work. Once I've got that done, I'll go back to Apollo 16 and continue on to EVA2. I am having some problems with EVA2 with the simulator. It's not quite doing what I want it to do. So I'm trying to think how to do that. And I think I said in the last video, I'm stuck over the maps and they're causing me a difficulty. The EVA2 map isn't quite working the way I want it to. So I'm going to be working on Apollo 16 as well at some point. John, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining, everybody. JT, I will catch up with you very soon, I'm sure, in a call. and want to see your work that you've been doing, because that's important too. I will say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye from the UK. Have a good evening. Have a good morning, day, afternoon, wherever you are. And if you're watching this later, leave us a comment. It's always great to read the comments. Love seeing them. And speak to you all soon. This is LM5 signing off. Take care. Bye.